Hey, dismembers, this is Mindy. I've spent 20 plus years in public service, which means I've battled government red tape, wrangled the media, survived cops with a sense of humor, and endured enough reply all emails to last a lifetime. Now I'm here to expose the messy, fascinating, and occasionally WTF world of unidentified and missing persons investigations. These aren't just cases, they're people with stories. And if we can make you laugh, gag, or raise an eyebrow while we talk about the dark side, mission accomplished.
That's right. But I am not Tom Cruise. Hey there, everyone. Hey, dismembers. I'm Dr. Nikki. I've worked in the forensic anthropology, death investigation, and crime scene analyst field for over 30 years. I've witnessed the inhumane things people can do to each other and the incredibly humane ways committed folks in the law enforcement and death investigation communities investigate these crimes. Hey, needless to say, I've seen a bunch of things. And one of the things we want to emphasize, really in every podcast, is that every individual we talk about, either missing or unidentified, is and was a person. These moms, dads, sisters, and brothers had lives, hopes, dreams, and futures. We want to make sure you see the behind the scenes effort it takes to bring them home.
All right. So, question of the day, Nikki.
Okay.
How much do you actually remember from when you were like, let's say 3? Is it real? Or is it just some mashed up fever dream your brain cooked up to protect you from the terrifying reality of being a toddler in the 80s?
Funny little known fact, I was not a toddler in the 80s. I was a toddler in the 70s, motherfucker.
Me too.
But honestly, in regards to memory, I think probably 90% fake. I I thought I had been a barrel like a barrel rider in my when I was a little kid, and I grew up and I saw pictures of myself just sitting on top of the one horse that we owned when I was 3. Totally faked myself out. I think our brains are professional gaslighters. But sometimes those random childhood memories, they could be the key to solving, say, a cold case.
Right? And that's what makes this story so damn wild. Today, we're going back to Southern Oregon, summer of 1963, where a fisherman thought he was pulling in that prize catch and instead reeled in a decades-long mystery. Picture this, July 11th, hot as hell probably.
Oh, God, no
King
kidding.
Creek Reservoir. It's supposedly a chill summer day. I doubt that on July 11th.
Okay.
Some guy's out fishing, maybe hoping to catch dinner, maybe just trying to escape his screaming freaking kids. And then his line snags on something heavy.
Oh, that makes the day a little different.
Right? So he starts hauling it in, thinking he's got a log or maybe some trash. But nope, this was no trash. He drags it to shore and unwraps a quilt. Not just any quilt, a homemade quilt.
And inside that homemade quilt, a toddler, bound up with wire, obviously dead, weighted down with chunks of iron molds, like someone wanted to make real sure this little boy stayed at the bottom of that reservoir.
I'm sorry, but what the actual fuck?
Yeah, it was grim, but also bizarre because the boy had been dressed with so much care. This little guy had on a red long sleeve shirt, gray corduroy pants, a cloth diaper pinned with little blue safety pins, anklet socks. You can picture it, right? And pristine white jumping jack brand toddler shoes.
They dressed him like he mattered and then abandoned him in a reservoir like he was nothing. Is that cruelty or was it shame? I can't decide if I'm more heartbroken or maybe just furious.
I know. It's hard to describe the emotions when you first learn about this case and how he was found, definitely. And Mindy, you're not alone. Even the seasoned cops were shaken. They determined the boy was about 2 to 3 years old, of European ancestry, or Caucasian, as they call it. Unfortunately, decomposition had rendered him virtually unrecognizable, and eye color or hair color, if he had hair at that point, could not be determined. Cause of death? Could not tell. But given the whole quilt, wire, iron weights at the bottom of a reservoir situation, no one thought he wandered off and drowned.
Yeah, I don't think you wander off and then wrap yourself in wire and wait.
No.
Poor little guy. The case blew up locally. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office pulled in help from Oregon State Police and even the FBI. Over 20 investigators, tons and tons of man hours, and nothing. No missing kid reports matched, no neighbors with sketchy stories, no eyewitness accounts, just nothing.
Completely anonymous. No idea who this kid is. So they buried him in Hillcrest Memorial Park. His headstone read, "Baby Boy Doe, known only to God."
God, that's heartbreaking. Just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And then 60 years later, and I'm still pissed. Okay, so flash forward to 2008. New detectives, new tech, time to literally dig this mystery back up, right?
Yes, definitely. So everybody get a shovel because they exhumed the body, hoping for fresh answers. Body was exhumed. There he was. The first step was to take a CT scan of his skull.
Which sounds a little sci-fi as hell. Come on.
Yeah, it does. And it certainly was back then. I mean, CTs have been around for a long time, but this was essentially new technology that gave detailed 3D images of his tiny dentition, his baby teeth. But there was something else. The skull shape suggested, say, Down syndrome or a similar condition caused by genetics that affected the frontal region of his brain case. That was a crucial clue that they didn't have before.
So now they at least had something. Did they run the DNA yet?
They did. So STR DNA profiling, short tandem repeats, basically your bread and butter genetic fingerprinting for forensics, was uploaded into CODIS. STR DNA profiling looks at a small amount of DNA markers that are specific to forensic casework.
Cue my hopeful music.
Yes.
And then cue my disappointment.
Yeah, I know. No hits. CODIS can be a forensic beast, but it can only find people if their DNA or their family's DNA is already in there. And let's face it, back in the 60s, no one was really swabbing cheeks at the family reunion to get put up in an imaginary database that didn't exist anymore yet. So the best way to identify people back then was dental records comparison or maybe fingerprinting. But this is a toddler, right?
Yeah, right.
We know our toddler obviously hadn't been fingerprinted, and there was no missing toddler to compare dental records to, if they even existed at that point.
Right? So maybe that's on my next to-do list at my next family reunion, swabbing cheeks, right? Let's just put that on the to-do list next to bingo and face painting.
Get everybody's consent.
Okay, so what now? Did they just give up?
Not even close, Mindy. In 2019, the Oregon State Medical Examiner's Office scored a federal grant. And this was a grant to use innovative DNA technology to solve the oldest cases of unidentified remains that still existed in Oregon. So, enter Parabon Nanolabs.
Our DNA Avengers, if you will. They are the lab that performs a whole different type of DNA analysis. The one that looks at hundreds of thousands of locations on the genes and not just a few like our STR DNA, right? Parabon Nanolabs uses SNP DNA profiles to provide a wide, brilliant picture of what this little guy looked like.
Right? So cool. They used DNA phenotyping, which looks at the location of the genes that express physical characteristics. And this analysis predicted the boy's appearance. Very fair to fair skin, brown or hazel eyes, light brown to blonde hair. These were characteristics we never knew before because he had been so decomposed, Mindy. So his features were being truly revealed. In addition, Parabon created a type of composite image with all of that information that Jackson County Sheriff's Office could use in their investigation. But the real game changer was IGG, investigative genetic genealogy.
Okay. Layman's terms for our true crime dismember crowd.
For our dismembers, you probably already know this, but think about ancestry DNA or family tree DNA, but for unidentified person cold cases. They upload his SNP profile, which stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms, which gives way more data than STRs, into the open source databases GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. These databases let people upload their raw DNA files to connect with family, or in this case, to find a child's identity.
And here's where it gets cinematic, right? Web sleuths start seeing the facial recognition and hearing about the child's possible developmental challenge, and they call detectives about another type of rare genetic disorder called Williams syndrome. This little guy very well may have suffered from that rather than Down syndrome. Also, relatives start popping up on the family tree. Distant cousins twice removed, but then stories start surfacing.
That's right. And our web sleuths out there that help law enforcement and investigators look at connections with cases like this, they really are an important facet of these types of investigations because they give us ideas that maybe we had never thought about before. And in this case, because of the Williams syndrome possibility, that also really allowed investigators to expand their the way they talked about these cases with the general public. But if we're going back to the family, there was one relative that remembered a baby brother named Stevie. This was a relative that was found with that DNA analysis, by the way. This person remembered Stevie as being disabled, number one, but also just a sweet little guy. And the relative remembered how one summer in 1963, Stevie just vanished. No funeral, no explanation. The family packed up and then left town.
Nope. You don't just lose a toddler and keep it moving like it's a bad Yelp review.
Yeah, I know. It's not a normal family memory at all. I think all of the kids in the family, which was blended at this point with several half siblings and such. So at that point, they were relatively young, as you can imagine. And again, this was the 60s. And they weren't really in positions to ask pointed questions of their parents regarding where little Stevie went. So these were relatives, one in particular that remembered Stevie, remembered that he was a sweet little guy, used to play with Stevie, but then never really knew what happened to our little toddler. And in fact, the parents told them that he had passed away.
So what cracked it?
That's a great question. So Parabon's genealogists contacted living relatives that they found with that IgG analysis, and they asked for DNA swabs. A male relative agreed. When his DNA came back, it confirmed he was a maternal half sibling to our little boy. That means connected in a very special way.
So that means the DNA matched on the mother's side of the family tree. And just like that, after nearly 6 decades, baby boy Doe had his name back. Stephen Alexander Crawford, born October 2nd, 1960.
6 decades. And his name is Stevie.
So damn bittersweet. But do we know who or why he was dumped?
Sadly, no. Stevie's mother has passed, and no adults from that time are alive to question, really. It's the kids, the now grown-up siblings whose memories and DNA helped tremendously to solve this case.
God, Nikki, this one wrecks me, right? Little Stevie, hidden for decades. At least he's not just the boy in the bundle anymore.
Agreed. And, I think there was over 20 investigators over the
Wow.
6 decades that this case had been investigated. And, we do give a shout out to every single person who worked on this case. Exhuming his body in 2008 was a bold move.
That doesn't happen very often.
No, it absolutely doesn't. And the state medical examiner is the only one who can authorize the exhumation of a body. So our state ME at the time, Dr. Karen Gunson, was very instrumental in realizing the importance of getting additional DNA analysis with that innovative technique done. And she really did lead the way in that respect, for sure.
Right. And again, not like you see on TV and CSI and these, SUV cases.
Right.
This spanned 6 decades. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just a 30-minute episode.
Yeah. Not solved in 42 minutes plus commercials, for sure.
Right.
And I'm so glad he's not boy in the bundle anymore or known only to God. He is accounted for. We have his name, which is fantastic. But it's time to ask you, Mindy, in your experience looking at the circumstances of this type of case, being in the law enforcement circles that you've been in for so long and knowing the backstory on many of these scenarios, what do you think actually happened in the Stevie Crawford case?
My gut, I think Stevie's mom may have killed him, honestly. But not because she didn't love him, because I think she did. The way he was dressed, the care and how he was placed, that doesn't scream hate to me. That scream a mother's love tangled up in probably unbearable circumstances, probably lots of other mouths to feed, and with a special needs child. She probably maybe even thought this was the best thing for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of the things that is, I think, important to point out about this case is that when people hear about Stevie Crawford and the circumstances in which he was found, a lot of people snapped straight to homicide, like he was killed and then hidden. I don't necessarily go there. I think your theory is absolutely sound, but this may have been a kid with the type of condition where he may not have woken up one morning. Correct. And then, like you said, resources, circumstances may have been such that she couldn't pay for a funeral. She couldn't afford cremation, or burial plot. I mean, this was the 60s.
In the 60s. Mm-hmm.
We know Stevie's mom. We're not going to identify her by name, but we know that she was under some pretty bad circumstances during most of her life. And so we want to give her some grace. We can't interview her. And, this will remain a mystery in regards to who did this and how he ended up in that reservoir. But, maybe it's not really justice, but he does have a name. It certainly is peace to me to think that baby boy Doe is now accounted for, and we can call him Stevie Crawford. Sometimes that's as far as you can get.
It's true. Not every case gets tied up with a pretty bow or a suspect in jail or, no, sometimes, part of the mystery remains forever.
It's true. And this is probably one of those cases. I know Jackson County Sheriff's Office considers this case closed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they do not have a suspect in which they could pursue.
And no way in which to find more information out.
That's
but again, like you said, there is very much peace that baby boy Doe is now accounted for. Yeah. All right, dismembers, that is a wrap on another episode. As always, got questions, you know where to go. Slide into our DMs, check out all of our webs and socials.
That's right. Do all of those things that Mindy said that I don't know anything about. And if you're interested in uploading your DNA into GEDmatch, we're going to have a link. There's a YouTube video. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how to do this.
Yeah.
There are. And so this is not a uncommon thing anymore. Let's get this done, people. If you want to be a part of solving these mysteries, even just, off the periphery in a secondary way, or to just be a piece of the puzzle, we'll have some links in our socials to give you an idea of how to do that. But, at this point, yeah. I'm sorry, Mindy, I interrupted.
You can, oh, no, I just, you're obviously listening to us because you like true crime and that intrigues you. You can be part of it, even if you don't know somebody in your family that could be missing or unidentified persons, choosing to be part of these cases is kind of cool. People kind of think it's, kind of cool. So yeah, you can take your 23andMe or your ancestry that you sat on the couch with your loved ones and spit into a cup to get your DNA to find out all the pieces to you that make you up. Well, you can download that into a zip file and then purposefully choose to upload it into GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA and opt in. Just clicking a button, opt into law enforcement. They don't go and, scientists don't go and analyze your DNA. This is truly for those law enforcement cases out there.
Right. And there are parameters and restrictions in place to make sure that your DNA is secure, that profile is secure. And think of it as a puzzle. The puzzle piece from one end of the puzzle isn't touching the one at the bottom right-hand corner, but they're all connected in some way. So you could be a puzzle piece that connects one dot to another. And
absolutely.
That's our public service announcement for get your DNA into GEDmatch, right?
That's right.
So, Mindy, really the most important question. We're going to meet again and we're going to talk about some other cool cases in the near future. Where do you want to meet next time?
Nikki, meet me at the morgue.
Will do.